There are people who apologize before they even finish a sentence. Sorry, I just have a quick question. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. Sorry, I feel this way. The apology comes out automatically, almost like punctuation. It slips into conversations where no harm was done, no boundary was crossed, no offense was given. And yet the word sorry appears again and again, as if their very existence requires justification. The psychology of over-apologizing and people-pleasing runs deeper than politeness. It is not simply about good manners or empathy. It is often about safety, belonging, and a deeply learned fear of rejection. For many, this pattern did not begin in adulthood. It began much earlier, in environments where harmony was fragile and love felt conditional. As children, we are wired to attach. Our survival depends on connection. If a caregiver is unpredictable, critical, emotionally distant, or easily overwhelmed, the child adapts. They become hyper-aware of emotional shifts. They learn to read micro-expressions, tone changes, the smallest signs of tension. And when conflict arises, they instinctively try to repair it quickly. Sometimes that repair comes in the form of apology, even if they were not responsible. If a parent seemed stressed and withdrew affection, the child might assume, it must be me. If expressing frustration led to punishment or dismissal, the child learns that having needs creates danger. Over time, the nervous system links disagreement with disconnection. The safest strategy becomes clear. Minimize yourself, smooth things over, take the blame, and keep the peace. This is not weakness, it is adaptation. It is a child doing everything in their power to preserve attachment. But when that child grows into an adult, the strategy often remains long after the original environment is gone. Over-apologizing becomes an unconscious attempt to control outcomes. When you apologize preemptively, you are trying to prevent conflict before it happens. You are signaling, I am not a threat. I am not difficult. I will take responsibility. It creates a temporary sense of relief. The tension decreases. The other person softens. Your nervous system settles. But underneath the relief is a painful belief. If I upset you, you will leave. If you're disappointed in me, I will lose my place. In daily life, this might look like apologizing for asking for help, apologizing for speaking up in meetings, apologizing for taking up time, apologizing for having emotions. You might say, sorry, when someone bumps into you. You might over-explain your boundaries to make them more palatable. You might feel intense guilt after asserting a preference, even a small one. People-pleasing and over-apologizing often travel together. One is behavioral, the other is verbal. Both are rooted in the same fear, rejection. Psychologically, this pattern is often linked to anxious attachment. When early relationships were inconsistent, warm at times, distant at others, the child learns that connection must be maintained through effort. They become responsible for emotional repair. In adulthood, they may feel hyper-responsible for others' feelings. If someone is upset, even for reasons unrelated to them, they feel compelled to fix it. There is also a cognitive distortion at play, personalization. You assume responsibility for events and emotions outside your control. A friend is quiet, you must have done something wrong. A partner is stressed. It must be because of you. A coworker is short in an email. You must have made a mistake. This constant scanning creates chronic anxiety. Your mind becomes a threat detection system, always evaluating whether you are in good standing. Approval becomes a measure of safety. Disapproval feels catastrophic, even if it is mild or temporary. Over time, this erodes self-trust. When you automatically apologize, you bypass the question, did I actually do something wrong? Instead of evaluating reality, you default to self-blame. This can distort your perception of events. You may begin to doubt your own experiences, minimizing harm done to you while amplifying your own perceived faults. In relationships, this dynamic creates imbalance. If you are always the one apologizing, even in conflicts that are mutual, the power dynamic subtly shifts. You position yourself as the perpetual offender, the one who must earn forgiveness. This can attract partners or friends who unconsciously accept that imbalance or even exploit it. Ironically, excessive apologizing can also create quiet resentment. On the surface, you appear agreeable and accommodating. Internally, you may feel unseen and unvalued. Because when you constantly take the blame, your own hurt never gets acknowledged. You swallow it to keep the peace. There is also a neurological component. Each time you apologize and the tension decreases, your brain receives reinforcement. The relief acts like a reward. Your nervous system learns. Apology equals safety. The pattern becomes automatic. Even neutral situations trigger it. But what if safety no longer depends on shrinking yourself? Breaking the cycle begins with awareness. Notice when you apologize. Pause after the word sorry. Ask yourself gently, what am I apologizing for? Did I cause harm? Did I cross a boundary? Or am I apologizing for existing, for having needs, for speaking? This question can feel uncomfortable because it challenges a long-held belief that your presence must be softened to be accepted. Underneath over-apologizing is often shame, not the healthy guilt that comes from doing something wrong, but a deeper shame that says, there is something inherently wrong with me. If that belief formed early in life, it may feel like truth, but beliefs formed in survival are not always accurate reflections of who you are. Learning to tolerate discomfort is essential. When you don't apologize immediately, you may feel a surge of anxiety. Your mind may predict rejection. Let that feeling rise and fall. Observe it. Often, nothing catastrophic happens. The other person may not even have perceived a problem. Replacing automatic apologies with gratitude can also shift the dynamic. Instead of sorry I'm late, you might say, thank you for waiting. Instead of sorry for venting, you might say, I appreciate you listening. This reframes your presence as worthy rather than burdensome. But the deeper work involves self-worth. You begin to internalize the idea that your value is not dependent on perfect behavior or constant harmony. You are allowed to make mistakes without collapsing into shame. You are allowed to disagree without fearing abandonment. You are allowed to take up space. In healthy relationships, conflict does not equal rejection. Disagreement does not equal disconnection. Mature intimacy can withstand tension. It includes repair, but repair does not always mean self-blame. It can mean mutual accountability. You may notice that as you reduce over-apologizing, some dynamics shift. People who benefited from your constant accommodation may feel unsettled. That discomfort does not mean you are wrong. It means the pattern is changing. Self-compassion is crucial in this process. You learned to over-apologize for a reason. It once protected you. It kept relationships intact. It helped you survive emotionally complex environments. You do not need to judge that part of yourself. Instead, you can thank it and gently update it. Each time you choose not to apologize unnecessarily, you strengthen a new neural pathway. Each time you assert a boundary without cushioning it in guilt, you reinforce self-respect. Change feels unnatural at first because your nervous system prefers familiarity. But unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Imagine speaking without prefacing every sentence with sorry. Imagine making a request without feeling like a burden. Imagine believing that your emotions are valid without requiring justification. This does not mean becoming indifferent to others' feelings. Empathy remains important. Accountability remains important. The goal is balance, where you take responsibility for what is yours and release responsibility for what is not. Over-apologizing often stems from the fear that love must be earned through perfection and compliance. Healing begins when you realize that real connection does not require constant self-erasure. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and mutual respect. You are not too much. You are not inherently disruptive. You are not a burden for having needs, preferences, or emotions. You can pause before saying sorry. You can assess the situation. You can decide whether an apology is truly warranted. And when it is, you can offer it from a place of strength, not shame. The shift may be subtle at first. Fewer apologies, shorter explanations, clearer boundaries. But beneath those small changes is a profound transformation, moving from fear-based connection to secure connection, first with yourself and then with others. And in that shift, Something quiet but powerful happens. You begin to feel steadier, less anxious, less desperate for reassurance. You discover that your worth does not rise and fall with every interaction. You were never meant to apologize for existing. You were meant to participate in relationships as an equal, flawed, human, and deserving of respect. Healing is not about silencing your empathy. It is about anchoring it in self-respect. And with patience, awareness, and compassion, you can unlearn the reflex to shrink and step into relationships where you no longer need to say sorry for being yourself.